Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we're talking about some of the biggest mistakes that bass anglers make this time of year and what you can do to avoid them. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you today. The reality is the next 4 to 6 weeks are, in my opinion, the toughest bass fishing of the entire year. They are. It gets difficult for a little while as bass transition. Now, with that said, we have figured out how to catch piles of fish during this seeming low spot. We can show you how to do the same thing. It is not complicated. There are some key mistakes that almost all anglers make right now. If you avoid those, you'll do great. You'll breeze right through this time period. Depending on where you are in the country, you're going to see the fishing begin to toughen up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And it won't make any sense on the surface. It may have already began where you are. You may have been out, you've got your summertime spots, you've been blasting fish, but it seems like every time you go out, you catch a few less. Or maybe they're already gone completely, depending on where you are. Maybe your fish have just vanished on you and you're starting to get frustrated. Hopefully you're the guy who's still blasting on them and it's coming, and we can help you get in front of it before it even starts. But here's the deal. The reason this is the most difficult time of the year is that there is a very subtle shift in the weather that causes a major shift in bass behavior. The number one mistake that bass anglers make is they don't even recognize that the change has happened. So everything that happens after that makes no sense to them. Here's the deal. Summertime temperatures for the next month are pretty consistent. You don't have a huge cool off as we head into September. Typically, those daytime highs are right there. Today is just as hot as yesterday, just as hot as a week ago. So why are the bass completely changing? It's the nighttime temperatures. This time of year, like clockwork, we'll see a slight cool down in nighttime temperatures. Now, I didn't say it would get cold. I didn't say it's gonna get freezing. I'm talking slight. But the first cool night towards the end of summer marks a hard shift in bass behavior, and you don't want to miss it. That will be a mistake. Here's the deal. The second that begins, bass start making huge transitions towards fall and ultimately towards their winter haunts, and they do it immediately. So if your bite has started shifting on you already, you're catching less fish and you don't know why, think about it. You may have already had your first cool night. If yours hasn't come yet, it is coming. And when it happens and you notice the fish behavior change, now you can get in front of it. So number one is recognizing the change. Now here is why it's such a big deal. The second we start to see that cool down, two things happen that I'm aware of. We see a major shift in bait fish behavior, which leads to the bass following. And then the second is it immediately starts to impact grass. Now, if you don't have a ton of grass in your fishery, your fish are a lot more stable than grass fisheries, but most of this country has grass and it's instant. The grass starts to not thrive. I didn't say it dies. Dying off completely takes a little bit of time, but it starts to not thrive. The look of the grass changes. It's struggling now. And the way that it was creating oxygen before comes to a screeching halt. The second you start seeing those cool nights, that grass starts to shift and those fish abandon it like a light switch. There's no sticking around and catching those fish. Those fish are gone. So the number one mistake is recognizing that it has happened. That's the biggest thing that you can do to alter here all the way into fall and ultimately into winter, because in late fall, bass get very stable. And if you can find them, you've got them all the way to spring. So figuring out where they're going now, getting in front of that, following the movements with them, sets you up to have an awesome fall and winter. Floundering now, continuing to beat a dead horse, doing the same things over and over again, catching less fish, and then ultimately having no clue where they went, that sets you up for not just a difficult September, but a difficult fall. And if you don't get in front of it, a difficult winter. That's how big of a deal this is. So let's talk about it. What can you do? Well, let's talk about the second mistake I see. When people start to feel like it's shutting down on them, things are getting tough, they're not catching many fish. I'm going back to the same place. I was catching 15, now I'm catching 1 or 2 or none. Once they feel that happening, the gut reaction is to slow down. Oh, the bite's gotten tougher. Let's slow down. Let's worm them. Let's throw the shaky head. Let's throw the drop shot. Let's throw a Ned rig. Slow fish. That'll catch them. That's a mistake. I'm not saying you won't ever get a bite, but what I'm saying is the reason it got tough on you is not that the fish's mood changed, it's that the fish left. So when you start to slow fish for them, you're still fishing for no fish or very few fish. That will not magically fix it. What you need to do instead is the opposite of how it feels. You need to start covering water. You need to power fish. You need to reaction fish. Because the more water that you can cover, the sooner you will reconnect with the fish. Now, I can get more specific with that. If you are on a grass fishery and the grass starts to make the turn, and I'm not talking that it's gone, I'm just talking that it's not healthy. Those fish abandon it. They're going one of two ways. They're going out to an edge, and that edge will have hard structure on it. They will be on that. Or they're going in to hard cover. So we're looking for wood, we're looking for rocks, we're looking for docks. We'll come back to that. But understand that your fish are making moves, and you need to start moving too. What you are looking for right now is baits that will cover a ton of water. They'll cover it quickly, effectively, and you are paying attention to every single bite that you get because it's all information. The more information you can take in, my fish have left my flat, I go out to an edge, I get a bite. I know where there were fish on another flat, I go out to that edge, I get another bite. Okay. The fish have started pulling. Some went out, some went in. Now I know to go in and check. The best piece of advice that I can give you is that if you're going to do this, you want baits with a lot of drawing power. Baits that have secondary action. One of two things. I either want a lot of flash and vibration, or I want a lot of movement, which ultimately is also vibration. So, fast-moving baits like an underspin. The underspin is an excellent choice. That blade will draw fish out, especially if they're chasing bait fish, which most are now. If they're chasing bait fish, a blade will catch their attention. Out of the thousands of bait fish, that's the thing that makes your little minnow stand out from all the other minnows, and they eat that one. Along those same lines, a swim jig. If you do still have that grass, but it's dying back and you can find the healthy patches of grass, maybe a few survived. Maybe there was one type of grass that didn't like the cool night, but you also had some eelgrass, and the eelgrass didn't mind it at all. The fish go straight into that eelgrass. A swim jig becomes an excellent option. The swim jig is weedless. That skirt will pulse, create secondary movement. It'll allow you to be really effective and cover a lot of water through that existing grass. Another great option is the chatterbait. But again, it's a downsized chatterbait. I'm going to come back to that. But again, the blade, the vibration, the flash, we're covering water with extra drawing power. And then last is one that people overlook, and that's a spy bait. Specifically the Spinbait 80. If you are a reservoir guy, less grass, clearer water. If you're a clear water guy, finesse your fishery, the spy bait is so overlooked, but this is a bait that can cover an incredible amount of water. you can fish it very quickly. You've got flash, you've got vibration, it's got all the things. There's a lot of sound associated with it. That will cover a ton of water and get bit, just like a swim jig or a chatterbait, and more of a southern style, grassier reservoir. Same concept, just adapted to clearer, more finessier conditions. Okay, so you want something that's either got a lot of flash or a lot of vibration. That secondary movement is key to getting the most bites. And again, more bites is more information and will help you build into the fall. The second mistake that I see people make is that, so they slow down, that's number one, but number two, or number three, I've lost track of how many things we've had here. But the next one is that people are going to throw very comfortable baits, confidence baits, if you will. The same baits that they throw the rest of the year. That's great. However, you can do a lot better by fishing the extremes. What I mean by that is, in most fisheries, the bait fish, let's take a place that's got shad, okay? The shad spawned back probably April, May on your lake. As a result, you've got these full-size adult shads still in your lake, but then you also have the little hatchlings, the little baby shad that are just coming up. So you've got big full-size shad, and you've got little tiny shad, and they're eating them both, period. They are. So instead of fishing in the middle, you will see Tim and I leaning more and more and more to the extremes. So instead of throwing a 4.8 Kitech and a regular chatterbait, you're going to see, again, those same baits I already picked up. You're going to see that 3-inch Largo shad on our mini underspin. You're going to see the Mini Max chatterbait with that downsized big bite trailer on there instead of a full-size jackhammer. That was the compact swim jig with a 3.5-inch Largo shad on it, as opposed to a full-size swim jig with a full-size trailer. Those downsized profiles. I still want to cover water, but those fish are chasing one or the other. So I'm covering a lot of water, but I'm in a smaller size profile, imitating those juvenile bait fish that are inevitably growing in your lake no matter where it is, because your fish spawned in spring and those little hatchlings have grown up and they're now small fish. That's what we're trying to imitate. At the other end of the spectrum, the big bait bite starts way sooner than people realize. In fact, it worked all summer, but it's become more of a pattern sooner than people realize. A glide bait at the other end of the spectrum has incredible drawing power. Even if you don't catch fish, it will pull fish up and you'll see them with your eyes, and that will give you a lot of information as well. But I do tend, even though it's a bigger bait, I lean towards the smaller end of that spectrum. Baits like the River to Sea S-Waver, the 168 is one of my favorite fall baits. I smash them every fall on a 168 waver. That Spro Chad Shad is another one. The Bait Sanity Chimera Shad, that's another one. These are baits that are so consistent and so effective at matching those larger bait fish, because the bass will start running bait as we go into the fall. Bait is that's their motive. They are eating bait fish. Bait will school, bass are on them, and that will just get more and more significant as we head through September into October and November, but it begins sooner than you realize. Now, the last thing that I can recommend is a jig. The reason why is, again, as that grass gets unhealthy, those bass are headed for cover, right? They are. The ones that are not on bait fish, the ones that are not chasing, they pull straight into hard cover. They'll go out to where it rolls into a creek channel, the edge of the ledge if you're on like a TVA system. But they'll get out there where it breaks off, just the end of a flat, and any hard cover on there, they'll get right in it. I have also seen, and this is why this is one of my favorite times, even though it's difficult for other people, I fish a lot of fisheries that'll have just miles of cheese and grass on them. And I've seen it all over the country. Amongst that cheese and grass, there might be laydowns or blown in logs, things like that, that were not really in play because they were out in the middle of a cheese field. But the second that grass starts dying, those fish want nothing to do with that grass, and they all pull straight onto that hard cover. I'll pull into an area that was 500 yards long of cheese, and it took me all afternoon to frog it last week. Well, now we're a week away from where I can come onto that same flat, and I can beeline straight to that log, grab my jig, flip, 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 stick them straight to the next log, straight to the next log, and I'm out. I'm covering so much more water, so much more effectively because the fish pull to that isolated, hard cover. The other place, if they're pulling towards the bank, you'll find them on rock piles and you'll find them on docks. Docks are a major deal. The jig is such an effective way to fish a dock. Now, I have a lot of jigs that I like, but more and more, I've been keeping it really, really simple this year. You guys already know, I don't even have to tell you what this is, but I will anyway. It's a 1/2 ounce Dirty Jigs pitching jig. If I could only have one, that is the one. That color is called the go-to because it is the go-to jig color. Seriously, that's the one. If I could only have one. I put a NetBait 4-inch pack of slim on that, and I'm set. I can take that jig anywhere in the country this time of year. Anywhere. Flip hard cover as that grass dies back, and that thing will get bit. I like that it's got that kick to it, but it's not an overwhelming kick. It's not this giant, exaggerated, it's none of that. It's just a subtle kick on the way down. I used to fish trailers that had no kick at all, but it seems like more and more I find that that little bit of kick helps me get a few extra bites, especially, I flip into that lay down a couple of times, I don't get bit. I go to wind out and those tails kick on the way out. And once in a while I'll have one charge out and eat it or swipe at it and show themselves. Now I know those fish are in there. But if I could only have one, that's it. Now, there are a lot of other jigs that I like to fish. I like finesse jigs. I like casting jigs. Around docks, I spend a lot of time with a finesse jig with like a double tail on it, curly tail. But this year, I've been spending more and more time with this jig. This is, again, Dirty Jigs Dirty Jigs pitching jig. This is the Dirty Jigs compact pitching jig. Exact same thing, but with a significantly smaller hook in it. Shorter shanked, lighter wire. The result is that I can throw it on lighter line. So I throw my pitching jig on fairly heavy line. I mean, I catch a lot of big ones doing this, so I want to smash them. But that compact pitching jig allows me to drop down. I can go to 10 to 12 pound line, 14 pound line, and I'm set. That one, I've got that X-Zone craw on the back of it, just a little bit smaller. And again, in the video description, I'll link you all these baits, our exact favorite colors for each one, my favorite color for the trailer, favorite color for the jig, and a couple of colors for those jigs, not just the go-to. I've got a couple that I like, but go-to is definitely number one. But these are things that we use year after year. This is not new, but year after year, we fine-tune it. We get better at it. We see the signs sooner and we're not floundering anymore. We only know about these mistakes because we made them. And we made them over and over again. We made them so many times, it's embarrassing. There were years where I hung my boat keys up for the entire month of September and never went out. We're talking about a long time ago, but never went out the whole month just because I knew I couldn't catch them. Well, we've learned now. We've discovered what the fish are doing, why they're doing it. We figured out how to get ahead of them. We've learned how to capitalize and make this a fun time of year. And you can do the exact same thing. Don't make the mistakes. Keep an eye out for the mistakes. When you see the conditions coming, adapt. Get in front of it, and it will set you up for not just a fun September, but a successful fall and winter. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.